Senate will come to order. Senators will be in their seats. The clerk will call the roll.
Alley. Baumgartner. Billinger. Blasey. Bowers. Clays. Corson. Dietrich. Dahl. Erickson. Fag. Faust-Goudot. Francisco. Gossage. Haley. Holland. Holscher. Kirshen. Cluse. Longbine. Masterson. McGinn. Olson. O'Shea. Baumgartner. Peck. Billinger. Blasey. Peterson. Bowers. Petty. Clays. Pittman. Corson. Dietrich. Dahl. Reichman. Erickson. Schallenberger. Fag. Steffen. Faust-Goudot. Francisco. Gossage. Straub. Haley. Sykes. Holland. Thompson. Holscher. Tyson. Kirshen. Ware. Cluse. Warren. Longbine. Wilborn. Masterson. McGinn.
Senators, we have a guest
Olson.
chaplain this afternoon. Reverend
O'Shea.
Shirley D. Heermans is from the historic St. Mark's AME Church in Topeka.
Peterson.
Guests and senators, please rise and give
Petty.
prayerful attention to our chaplain.
Pittman.
Chaplain.
Pyle. Reddy. Reichman.
Let us pray.
Schallenberger.
Dear Heavenly
Stephan.
Father, creator and sustainer of all, as I stand now, and I've come
Stephan.
to lift before you this house
Straub.
occupied by the men
Sykes.
and women who serve as the Kansas
Thompson.
State Senate
Tyson.
legislators. I pray as they prepare
Ware.
to move through the
Warren.
functions of this day that you will
Wilborn.
grant to each the power to perform with purpose
Senators, we have a
toward
guest chaplain
fulfilling
this
the
afternoon.
objectives that
Reverend
are
Shirley D.
aimed for
Heermans is from
the
the historic
betterment
St.
of
Mark's
all
AME Church in
Kansans.
Topeka.
As they move through the course of this
Guests and
day
senators,
set
please rise and
aside
give
to
prayerful attention to our
contemplate and to express love, let the objectives of their work be motivated by it. Let the Dear Heavenly Father, Creator, debates and the decisions to be determined, let them be determined by their devotion to the American creed of liberty and justice as the Kansas State as they serve this great state through I pray as they prepare diplomatic coalitions, make one this day that you will grant to alliance the power around the things that impact the citizens of Kansas in ways that will benefit the masses, especially at this time when love in action is as they move through so many, not just in Kansas, but everywhere. Contemplate and to express and fuel their minds to establish goodwill as individuals and as a body. As we exist in the middle of what we have come to know as Black History Month, and as we celebrate those who have gone before us, people of African creed of liberty, who have made major contributions throughout they serve this great state, country, our world for the betterment of all people. I pray to you, O God, for all those around the things that impact the citizens of Kansas in ways that will benefit the masses. That you will empower them and time when love in action is the kind of wisdom to perform in ways that but you will say, fill their hearts and fuel their minds. Bless down this house, O God, and the work this day will bring to fruition. As we exist in the middle of what we have come to know as Black History Month, and as we celebrate those who have gone before us, people of African descent who have made major contributions throughout our state, country, our world, for the betterment of all people. I pray to you, O God, for all those who sat in this chamber to fashion the future. I pray that you will empower them and give each the kind of wisdom to perform in ways that you will say, well done. Bless down this house, O God, and
Please
the
note
work
references of bills
this
on
day
page
will
1
bring
and 2
to
of the
fruition.
calendar.
I pray in the precious name.
Introduction
I
of
pray
original motions
in the
and Senate
precious name of
resolutions. Clerk will
Jesus.
read.
Amen.
Senate Resolution Number 1709 by Senators Faust-Goudot and Haley, a resolution recognizing the members of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, Inc. for their outstanding service to the citizens of our state, our nation, and the international community, and for their promotion of sisterhood, scholarship, and service.
Chair recognizes the senator from Sedgwick, Senator Faust-Goudot.
Thank you, Mr. President. If the reader would
Please
read,
note references
please.
of bills on page 1 and 2 of the calendar.
Whereas, Delta Sigma Theta
Introduction of
Sorority,
original
Inc. is a
motions and
private,
Senate
not-for-profit
resolutions,
organization whose purpose is to provide assistance and support in local communities Senate throughout Resolution the number world 1709 in diverse fields by Senators relating to
oh
public
Faust Goudeau
service through
and
the
Haley.
organization's
A resolution
established
recognizing the
5-point
members of
programmatic
Delta Sigma
thrust,
Theta Sorority,
economic development
Inc.
for their
Educational
outstanding service to
development,
the citizens
international
of our state,
awareness,
our
and
nation,
involvement,
and the
physical
international
and mental health,
community,
and
political
political
awareness and
promotion of
involvement.
sisterhood, scholarship,
And whereas,
and
on
service.
January 13th, 1913, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority,
recognize the
Inc.
Senator
was
from
founded
Sedgwick,
at
Senator
Howard
Faust
University
Goudeau.
in the District of Columbia by Ocelia
Thank you,
McCarthy
Mr.
Adams,
President.
Marguerite
If the
Young
reader would
Alexander,
read,
Winnoa
please.
Cargyle Alexander, Ethel
Whereas,
Cuff Black, Delta Sigma
Bertha
Theta
Pitts
Sorority,
Campbell,
Inc. is a
Zeph-
private,
Zephyr
not-for-profit
Chisholm
organization
Carter,
whose
Edna
purpose
Brown
is to provide
Coleman,
assistance
Jesse
and support
McGuire
in
Dent,
local communities
Frederica
throughout the
Chase
world
Dodd,
in diverse
Myra
fields
Davis
relating
Hemmings,
to public service
Olive
through the
C.
organization's
Jones,
established
Mamie Reddy
5-point
Rose,
programmatic
Eliza
thrust,
Pearl Shippen,
economic development,
Florence Letcher
educational
Toms,
development, international
Ethel Carl,
awareness and
Carr
involvement,
Watson,
physical and mental
Wordie
health,
Blackwell
and
Weaver,
political awareness and
Madry
involvement.
Penn White,
And whereas,
and Edith
on
Mott
January
Young.
13th, 1913,
And whereas,
Delta
in
Sigma
March
Theta
1913,
Sorority, Inc.
the founders
was
of
founded
Delta
at
Sigma
Howard
Theta
University
Sorority,
in the
Inc.
District of Columbia
participated in the
by
Women's
Ocelia
Suffrage March in the
McCarthy
District of
Adams,
Columbia,
Marguerite
which was the
Young
sorority's
Alexander,
first public
Winnoa
act.
Cargyle
And whereas,
Alexander,
since its
Ethel
founding,
Cuff
more than
Black,
300,000 women have joined the organization. And whereas, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, Inc.
Jesse
has
McGuire
8 chapters
Dent,
in Kansas
Frederica
and a
Chase
total of
Dodd,
1,000
Myra
collegiate and
Davis
alumni
Hemmings,
chapters in the United
Olive
States,
C. Jones,
Canada,
Mamie
Japan,
Reddy Rose,
Germany,
Eliza
and the Virgin
Pearl
Islands,
Shippen,
Bermuda,
Florence
the
Letcher
Bahamas,
Toms,
Jamaica,
Ethel
West
Carl,
Africa, and the
Carr
Republic of
Watson,
Korea.
Wordie
Now,
Blackwell
therefore,
Weaver,
be it resolved by
Madry
the Senate
Penn White,
of the state of
and Edith
Kansas
Mott
that we
Young.
recognize the members of Delta
And
Sigma
whereas,
Theta
in
Sorority,
March
Inc. for their
1913,
outstanding
the founders
service
of
to the
Delta
citizens of our
Sigma
state,
Theta Sorority,
our
Inc.
nation, and the
participated in the
international
Women's
community,
Suffrage March
and
in
for
the
their
District of
promotion of
Columbia,
sisterhood,
which was the
scholarship,
sorority's
and service.
first public act. And
Senator
whereas,
from Sedgwick,
since
Senator
its
Faust
founding,
Goudeau.
more than
Thank you, Mr.
300,000 women
President.
have joined the
As
organization.
usual,
And
it is
whereas,
my honor
Delta Sigma Theta Sorority,
to
Inc. has 8
acknowledge
chapters in Kansas
Delta
and a total of
Day at the
1,000 collegiate and
Capitol.
alumni chapters in the United
Most
States,
of my
Canada,
colleagues,
Japan,
most of you know
Germany,
them
and the Virgin
as
Islands,
the
Bermuda,
ladies in
the Bahamas,
red.
Jamaica,
And so
West
again,
Africa,
it is
and
our
the Republic of
pleasure
Korea.
to
Now,
host
therefore,
them in
be it resolved by the
the
Senate of the state
chamber
of Kansas
today.
that we
And with
recognize
that,
the
Mr.
members of Delta
President,
Sigma Theta
I'd like
Sorority,
to
Inc.
yield
for their
to the
outstanding
gentleman
service to the
from
citizens of our
Wyandotte,
state,
Senator
our nation,
Haley.
and the international community.
Senator from Wyandotte,
and
Senator
for their
Haley.
promotion of
Mr.
sisterhood,
President, thank you, and I
scholarship,
thank the
and
gentle
service.
lady from Sedgwick,
Senator from
my
Sedgwick, Senator Faust
seatmate,
Goudeau.
Thank you, Mr. President.
and in many ways my leader, Senator
as
Faust Goudeau,
usual,
for
it is
allowing
my
me
honor
to be personally
acknowledge
elevated to
Delta
add to the
Day
resolution,
at the
which we've all
Capitol.
heard. It shares
Most
a
of
little
my
bit of the
colleagues,
history
most of you know
since
them
1913.
as, the
1913,
ladies in
110
red.
years
and so
now
again, it is
of
our
this
pleasure
exceptional
to
organization.
host them
Delta
in the
Sigma
Senate
Theta
chamber
Sorority
today. And with that, Mr.
Incorporated.
President,
We
I'd
won't
like
call
to
upon
yield
them,
to
Mr.
the
President,
gentleman
to give out
from
their-
Wyandotte, Senator Haley.
Ooh.
Senator from Wyandotte, Senator Haley.
But
President, thank
indeed,
you, and I thank the
could,
gentle
and they
lady
would, when the
from
resolution,
Sedgwick,
which I
a
hope we'll all
seatmate,
unanimously adopt,
and in many
is brought
ways
in.
my leader,
Mr. President,
Senator
and
Faust
members,
Goudeau,
I'm
for allowing me
again personally elevated to say
personally
that
elevated
we,
to
we
add
took
to the resolution,
some
which
action
we've all
here.
heard.
We certainly
Shares
lately have
a little
added
bit of
to
the
the
history
possible Kansas
since
license
1913.
tags. 1913,
Delta Sigma Theta.
110 years now.
And here now,
this
from
exceptional
your 110th year from my alma mater,
Delta Sigma
my law school is
Theta
Howard Law, Howard
Sorority
University,
Incorporated.
from which your
We
inception
won't call upon them,
has
Mr. President,
sprung.
to give out their
I too want to say my mother, Doris Haley, and
but indeed,
my,
they could
my
and
sister,
they would
Ann
when the
Haley,
resolution,
and
which I hope
my
we'll all
former
unanimously
wife,
adopt, is brought
Michelle
in.
Haley.
Mr. President and
We're
members,
all
I'm,
proud members,
again,
we're all proud
personally
members
elevated
of
to say
DST,
that
Delta Sigma
we,
Theta.
we
It's
took
ingrained in
some
many
action here.
spirits
We
of so many
certainly
who
lately
are
have
enshrined
added to the
social
possible
action,
Kansas
community
license
service,
tags,
to pulchritude,
DST,
demeanor,
Delta Sigma
to
Theta.
beauty.
And here
And
now,
as always, you
from
make
your
us very proud to
110th
be
year
here.
from
And I
my
thank
alma
you,
mater,
Mr. President.
my law school
And I
is Howard
especially
Law,
want to
Howard
thank again
University,
Senator Faust Goudeau
from
for letting me
which
add
your inception
what is a pleasure for
has
me,
sprung.
a great joy for me, as you can
I
probably
too
all
wanna
tell.
say my
To
mother,
salute
Doris
you here
Haley,
today in the
and,
Kansas Senate.
my sister, Ann Haley,
And I
my
yield back if I
former
might,
wife,
Sedgwick, Senator
Michelle
Faust
Haley.
Goudeau.
We're all proud
Thank you,
members,
Mr.
we're all proud
President.
members
Thank you,
of
Senator
DST,
Haley.
Delta Sigma Theta.
And
It's
now,
ingrained
Mr.
in
President,
the
as
many
we know,
spirits
these
of so
ladies
many
do do a great deal of service
social action,
in our
community
communities.
service.
making
pulchritude,
life
demeanor,
better
to beauty.
for so many of our
And
youth
as
in
always,
the
you make
state
us
of
very proud
Kansas.
to be here. And I
Mr.
thank you,
President,
Mr.
these
President.
ladies here
And I especially want to
came
thank
to
again
the
Senator
Capitol
Faustido
today
for letting me
from
add
across
what is a
the state
pleasure
of
for me,
Kansas
a great
to
joy for
be
me, as
with
you can
us
probably all tell,
on
to salute
this
you here today
day.
in the
And I
Kansas
would
Senate.
love for
Ooh.
each one of them just to stand real quick,
And I yield
Mr.
back, if I
President,
might.
as I mentioned their names,
Faustido.
in the
Faustido.
head chair here.
Thank you, Mr.
None other than
President.
you,
Thank
Mr.
you,
President,
Senator
though you
Haley.
have the best chair.
And now, Mr.
But,
President, as we
if
know,
the
these ladies
state
do a great deal of
Kansas state
services
coordinator
in our
for the
communities,
Deltas,
making life
Dr.
better
Christina
for
Love,
so many
if
of
she
our
would
youth
stand,
in the state
and
of Kansas.
along with her,
Mr.
we
President,
have
these
Felicia
ladies
Nelson.
here came
If you would
to the
stand,
Capitol
please,
today
and
from
then we
across the
have
state of Kansas
Tammy
to be with us
Farr
on
Smith
this day
every
and
year.
I
And
would
you live right
love
here in
for
Topeka.
each one
Next
of
year,
them
I'm going to get it
just
right.
to
I
stand
promise.
real quickly, Mr. President,
and then
as
we
I mentioned
have
their names.
Brandy
In
Moore
the head
Klutz,
chair here,
and
none
then
other
we
than
have
you,
Jill
Mr. President,
Hall.
though you have
We
the
have,
best
if you would
chair.
stand, Jill.
But,
If we have
if
Dr.
the
Crystal
state,
Davis, if she would
Kansas
stand,
state coordinator
Delphina
for the
Maxwell.
Deltas,
And I
Dr.
believe you were a
Christina
former
Love,
member of
if
the
she would
CAT,
stand,
Kansas
and
African American
along with
Affairs
her,
Commission.
we have
Felicia
Felicia
Nelson
Parker
with us
if you would
today.
stand,
Hi,
please. And
we
then
have Alice
Tammy
Johnson.
Farr
Hello, ma'am.
Smith.
We have
Every year.
Neville.
You live right here in Topeka. Next year, I'm going to get
Say
it
it
right,
for
I
me.
promise.
Your last name.
And then we have Brandy Moore Klutz.
Thank you. And then we have
And then
Sonia
we have
Adams.
Jill
I just wanted
Hall.
to bring
have,
attention
if you would
to my
stand,
friend
Jill,
Tootie.
if we have
And we
Dr.
have
Crystal
Deborah Gray Davis.
and then
if
we
she would
have
stand.
Rhonda
Delphina
Harris,
Maxwell,
Mr. President, and she
and I believe you were a
is
former member of the CAT, Kansas
director
African American
over at
Affairs
the
Commission
in the Department
we
of
have
Commerce.
Anitra
Parker
small
with us
minority
today.
and women-owned
Hi,
businesses.
we have
She
Alice
is over
Curry
there.
Johnson.
And
Hello, ma'am.
so again, it's just
we
a
have
pleasure
Neville,
to have you ladies
Mac-
here.
Say it for
I
me.
hope you will come again.
Your last
and
name.
if we now,
Thank you. And
after
then we have
I
Sonia
read
Adams. I just wanted to
this
bring attention
closing,
to
my friend Tootie,
Then you can say
and
your
we have Deborah
and,
Gray,
and
then
then
stay
we
seated,
have
please. And so
Rhonda
with
Harris,
that,
Mr.
Mr. President,
and she is
the
I asked
that
director over at
I move an
in the
emergency be
Department of
declared,
Commerce,
the rules suspended,
small minority and
and
women-owned
Senate Resolution
businesses,
1709 be
she
adopted
is
by
over there.
voice vote.
And,
You've heard the
so
motion.
Again,
All those in favor
it's
say
just
aye.
a pleasure to have you
Opposed,
ladies
no.
here.
Motion carries.
I hope
Thank
you
you,
will
and
come
if
again.
everyone would
and,
please give them a round of applause.
If we now, after I read this closing, then you can say your and then stay seated, please. And so, with that, Mr. President, I ask that I move an emergency be declared, the rules suspended.
We're honored to have you all
and
here.
Senate
Thank you, Mr.
Resolution
President.
1709
Next, we
be
have point of personal
adopted
privilege,
by
and then we will return to the
voice
senator from
vote.
Sedgwick, Senator
You've heard the
Faustido.
motion.
All those in
Thank
favor
you,
say aye.
Mr. President.
Opposed, no.
In
Motion
the
carries.
East,
Thank you, and if everyone would
no,
please
the
give
West
them a round
Gallery,
of applause.
we have other members that are joining us today in the Capitol. We have members of Sigma Gamma Rho with us here today. If Amber Sellers would stand or wave, she is the commissioner of the City of Lawrence National
honored to have you all
Legislative
here.
Action
Thank you,
Chair
President.
for Sigma Gamma Rho
Next, we have point of
sorority.
personal privilege,
And
and we will return
seated
to the
next
senator
to
from
her
Sedgwick,
in
Senator
blue,
Faustido.
it is my
Thank you,
honor
Mr.
to
President.
mention Carla
in the
Eccles.
East,
She is also
the
a
West
soror
Gallery,
of the Sigma Gamma
we
Rho,
have
but she's
other
also
members
she's
that are
won
joining us
awards,
today
Mr. President,
in
in
the
Wichita
Capitol
with KMUW.
we have members
and so we're honored to have
Sigma
you
Gamma
in
Rho
the chamber with us
here
today as well.
today.
We also
If
have
Amber
Angela
Sellers
Johnson.
would
Where are you, my
stand
friend?
or
Hello.
wave. She
And
is
then
the
we have
commissioner
Courtney
of the City of
Woodbury
Lawrence,
here with us as well.
National
and then,
Legislative
thank you,
Action Chair
ladies.
for Sigma
we'll
Gamma
clap
Rho
for you as
sorority.
well.
And
And then
next to her
over
in
in the
blue,
gallery
it is
here,
my honor to mention
this is an
Carla
exciting day.
Eccles.
Once a year, I'm
She is
honored to do
also
this. We
a
have
soror
Zetas
of the
in the
Sigma Gamma Rho.
house.
But
If
please all stand and we would applaud
Mr.
this
President, in
sorority
Wichita
as
with
well.
KMUW. And
Hi,
so we're honored
ladies.
to have you in the chamber with us today as well.
And
we also have Angela
and Mr.
Johnson. Where are
President,
you, my
this would be
friend?
my
Hello.
last, I
And then we
believe,
have Courtney Woodbury
glasses
here
on
with
so I
us
can
as well.
see.
And then
We are honored
thank
today,
you,
as
ladies.
usual, to have
We'll
Black
clap
Legislative
for
Day
you as well
and
in the Capitol.
And then
Earlier, the
over
gentleman
in the
that was
gallery
standing right in the
here,
door there, the doorman
this
over
is
at
an
the House
exciting
of
day.
Representatives.
Once a year, I'm honored to
Mr.
do
President,
this. We
I
have
didn't know that he
Zetas
was the
in
first
the house.
black
If you would
doorman
stand and we would
to
applaud
ever be the
this
doorman
sorority
and leader
as
over
well.
for the last 13 years
Hi,
over in the
ladies.
House of Representatives, where you and I both served originally
Mr.
before coming to
President,
the
this
Senate.
would
But
be
he
my
was there.
last, I
So,
believe.
in honor of Black History Month, I wanted to
Glasses
acknowledge
on so I
him, but
can
he's
see.
left. So
We
we
are honored
will
today, as
acknowledge
usual, to have Black
LaWanda
Legislative Day
DeShazer. If you would stand,
in the Capitol.
LaWanda. Earlier, the gentleman that was standing right in
LaWanda
the door there, the
DeShazer
doorman,
is
over
the
at the House of
youth
Representatives
director for the
Mr.
Wichita
President,
NAACP
I didn't know that he was the
youth.
first.
If you'd raise your
black
hand,
and if there
doorman
are any other members
to
in
ever
the
be the
gallery
doorman
today
and leader
celebrating
over for
Black
the last
History
13 years
Day at the
over in
Capitol,
the House
I see
of
Dr.
Representatives,
Linda
where you and I
Overstreet.
both
Thank you so
served
much for joining us. If you would wave your
originally
hands
before
and
coming to the
if
Senate, but
everyone
he
would
was
just
there.
a
So
round of
in
applause
honor of Black
for
History
all of
Month,
us
I
today.
wanted to
Acknowledge him, but he's left. So we will acknowledge LaWanda DeShazer. If you would stand, LaWanda, and thank you,
LaWanda
Mr.
DeShazer
President. Is the
Welcome to all of you.
youth director for the Wichita NAACP
Messages from the governor. The
youth.
clerk will read.
If you'd raise your hand, and if there are any other members in the gallery today
To the Senate
celebrating
of the
Black
State of
History,
Kansas, submitted
Day
herewith for
at the Capitol. I see
confirmation by the
Dr.
Senate are
Glenda
appointments made by
Overstreet.
me
Thank
as the
you
governor
so
of the state of
much for
Kansas
joining us.
pursuant
If you
to
would
law.
wave your hands,
Assistant
and
Adjunct
if
General Air
everyone would just
/ Commander
a
of
round
the
of
Kansas Air
applause
National Guard,
for all of
Colonel
us
Jason
today.
Kenobi. Laura Kelly,
Thank
This
you,
constitutes
Mr.
introduction
President.
of that appointment previously read.
Welcome
Before
to all of
recessing, are there announcements? Messages from the governor. Seeing none, Chair recognizes the Majority Leader from Cali, Senator Alley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Republicans will caucus in room
To the Senate
548
of the State of
upon
Kansas,
recess.
submitted herewith
And
for
at this time, I yield
confirmation.
Senate will come to order. Chair recognizes the Majority Leader from Cali, Senator Alley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move the Senate resolve itself in the Committee of the Whole for consideration of bills on the calendar under the heading General Orders.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. The chair appoints the senator from Cloud, Senator Bowers, to preside over the Committee of the Whole.
Good afternoon. The Senate, having resolved itself in the Committee of the Whole, will now consider those items listed on the calendar under the heading of General Orders. We'll now turn our attention to Senate Bill 73. The chair recognizes Senator from Johnson, Senator Warren, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Senate Bill 73 is brought to us by our law enforcement community in Kansas, and it deals with the elements of the crime of burglary and protecting victims of domestic battery and violation of a protection order. So what the bill does is adds to the definition of burglary in statute that when you enter a dwelling without authority, which is the first element of the crime, and you have the intent to commit a domestic battery in that dwelling, or it would be a violation of a protection order to be in that dwelling, we now would have the tool, if this bill becomes law, to prosecute that type of crime. Right now, we don't have any ability to do that, and that's why it's a very important bill to victims of crime. And our Johnson County District Attorney's Office was a proponent of the bill, as well as our law enforcement community. And with that, Madam Chair, I stand for questions.
Are there questions for the Senator from Johnson? Senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wonder if the Senator from Johnson would stand for a question.
She will.
Thank you. Can she explain to us, this I understand would affect both regular burglary and aggravated burglary. Can she explain to us the difference?
Senator from Johnson, Senator Warren.
Thank you, Madam Chair. An aggravated burglary versus a burglary is when a human being is in the structure that is being entered without authority. That is an aggravated burglary.
Senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate that information.
Are there additional questions from Senator from Johnson, Senator Warren? Senator from Sedgwick, Senator Fascadeau.
Yes, Madam Chair, I have a question for the carrier of Senate Bill 73. If she would explain, so just give me a kind of a real life scenario of this situation. So, you know, I serve on the state board, domestic violence board, appointed by former Lieutenant or Attorney General Derek Schmidt, and I even introduced legislation at one time to create the Batterers program. I support Senate Bill 73. Anything to help those victims of domestic violence, and so just adding in the burglary and aggravated burglary. So would they have to, so are they already there and then they decide to commit the domestic battery? Just for those listening in, Madam Chair, if she could just give a real life scenario of that situation. Thank you.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Warren.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the question. So there are essentially three elements of the crime of burglary. And one is that the offender must enter a particular area without authority to do so. So if you're entering your own home, that would not constitute a burglary. If you're entering a home that you've been invited into for a party or any other reason, that would not constitute a burglary. The second element of the crime, and then I'll give you the elements and then kind of an example of what would be a burglary and what wouldn't. The second element is the type of space that you're entering without authority to do so. And by definition, it's a building, a manufactured home, a mobile home, a tent or other structure, which is not a dwelling, and any other dwelling or portion of a dwelling that's locked or secured. So, and the third element is the intent of why you're entering that, I'm going to call it dwelling to cover all the areas that you're not to enter without authority. Right now, you have to have the intent to commit a felony or a theft, and this would add to the intent if your intent is to commit a domestic battery while you're there without authority, or if your intent is to violate a protection order. So for an example, that would fall under the bill if it were to become law. Say you have a protection order to protect you from person A. Person A doesn't live with the person under the protective order. Person A enters the dwelling without request or without permission or without invitation from the person under the protective order, and that would be a violation of that protective order by person A. So you're under that protective order. Person A is to not be within so many feet of the person who's under the protective order for their protection, and now we can prosecute that as a burglary, where without this bill, we would not be able to do that.
Senator from Sedgwick, Senator Fasquedo.
Madam Chair, thank you to the senator from Johnson. So adding this language into law would increase that penalty. How?
Senator from Johnson, Senator Warren.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It wouldn't increase the penalty. It would add to the definition of what is a burglary or an aggravated burglary. It would add to the list. You have the intent when entering that dwelling without authority. You have the intent to commit a domestic battery or the intent to violate a protection order. Right now, we wouldn't be able to prosecute that as a burglary.
Senator from Sedgwick, Senator Fasquedo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the explanation from the gentlelady from Johnson, and I support the bill. Thank you.
Are there additional questions from Senator from Johnson, Senator Warren? Are we still waiting? There is an amendment being prepared, so we're going to temporarily pass over this bill and we'll come back to it. So now we'll turn our attention back to the Senator from Johnson, Senator Warren, to explain and adopt the committee report on Senate Bill 106.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we adopt the committee report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. You may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 106 was a bill that was heard in Transportation Committee in the Senate, and I thank the chair of the Transportation Committee for the opportunity to allow me to carry this very important consumer protection bill. And what it does is it creates a new crime in Kansas, that it is a crime to knowingly or intentionally manufacture, import, distribute, sell, offer for sale, install or reinstall a counterfeit or a fake airbag in your vehicle. Right now, we don't have the authority in Kansas to prosecute this type of crime. Kansans clearly, when they're operating their motor vehicle in this state, expect that when they have an airbag in their vehicle, that it will properly function. We heard testimony that sometimes these counterfeit airbags are filled with sawdust, newspaper, styrofoam peanuts, and without this bill, We don't have the authority to stop the importing of these airbags at the border. We don't have the ability to confiscate them when they are discovered at a dealership or elsewhere. So this is a very important piece of legislation to keep our Kansas motoring population safe. And with that, Madam Chair, I will stand for questions.
Are there any questions from Senator from Johnson, Senator Warren? I see none. Senator Warren, you may close.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I close and move that when the committee rises and it reports Senate Bill 106 favorably for passage.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. The Senate will stand at ease. The chair recognizes the senator from Wyandotte, Senator Haley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to withdraw the amendment at this time.
Thank you, Senator. We'll turn our attention back to the senator from Johnson, Senator Warren. Are there any other questions for the senator? I see none. You may close.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that when the committee rises and reports, it reports Senate Bill 73 favorably for passage.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Motion carries. The chair now recognizes the Majority Leader from Cali, Senator Alley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. Motion carries.
You're funny.
Clerk will read the committee report.
On motion of Senator Alley, the Senate resolved itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of bills on the calendar under the heading of General Orders, with Senator Bowers in the chair. Recommended SB 73 be passed, SB 106 be passed by the adoption of the committee report, and the bill be passed as amended.
Chair recognizes the senator from Cloud, Senator Bowers, to adopt the committee report.
I move we adopt the committee report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. The Senate will take final action votes tomorrow, and also on the vote are the consent calendar bills. So there are two, but that'll all happen tomorrow. Introduction of bills and concurrent resolutions. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill number 249 by Committee on Federal and State Affairs, an act concerning the offices of the State Treasurer and the Commissioner of Insurance. Senate Bill number 250 by Committee on Federal and State Affairs, an act concerning the Personal and Family Protection Act. Senate Bill number 251 by Committee on Federal and State Affairs, an act concerning alcoholic beverages. Senate Bill number 252 by Committee on Assessment and Taxation, an act concerning taxation. Senate Concurrent Resolution number 1605 by Senators Straub and others, a proposition to amend Section 2 of Article 2 of the Constitution of the State of Kansas.
This constitutes introduction of Senate Bill 249 through Senate Bill 252 and SCR 1605. Reports of standing committees. Clerk will read.
Mr. President, the Committee on Financial Institutions and Insurance recommends SB 18 be passed. Mr. President, the Committee on Financial Institutions and Insurance recommends that SB 34 be passed. Mr. President, the Committee on Financial Institutions and Insurance recommends SB 37 be amended and the bill be passed as amended. Mr. President, the Committee on Financial Institutions and Insurance recommends SB 44 be amended and the bill passed as amended. Mr. President, the Committee on Financial Institutions and Insurance recommends SB 51 be passed. Mr. President, the Committee on Utilities recommends SB 68 be amended and the bill be passed as amended. Mr. President, the Committee on Financial Institutions and Insurance recommends SB 85 be passed. Mr. President, the Committee on Transportation recommends SB 130 be amended and the bill be passed as amended.
Are there announcements? Senator from Lynn, Senator Tyson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I apologize. The Senate Tax Committee will be meeting tomorrow as regular, and then we will continue our meeting at 3:30 tomorrow after session in room 548. We will also have a hearing. I'd like to announce that today, so there's plenty of time, on Senate Bill 248 Monday. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilburn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just like to announce the legislative Bible studies tomorrow at 7 a.m., room 142 South. Thank you.
Any further announcements? Seeing none, Chair recognizes the Majority Leader from Cali, Senator Alley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate adjourn until 2:30 p.m. on Wednesday, February 15th, 2023.
For the motion, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Senate's adjourned.